Guten Morgen an Sie alle.
Good morning to everyone. I'm very pleased about your interest in our company. There is no doubt whatsoever 2020 was an unusual year. At the beginning of my presentation, I have shown you a photo of our event 1 year ago. From today's point of view, this looks like a picture from another world. I too hope that we will be able to have a more direct exchange of thoughts and opinions with the members of the press next year. But there is some hope as we make progress with the vaccination program. Corona was and is a particular challenge for each and every person, for our society, but also for businesses and companies, and that is why it was such a big challenge for Fresenius as well. The economic challenge is something that I will deal with in just a moment, but primarily, without any doubt, this was a medical challenge. As a healthcare company, we were and are in the middle of this battle, and we see ourselves as an essential part of the solution. We provide care to our patients and around the world and provide them with products, in particular also with Spain. You are seeing a photo from our big hospital in Madrid, Fundación Jiménez Díaz, and I would like to take a quick look at what we've done from the medical standpoint. Our acute care hospitals were a focal point of attention. We now have approximately 130 hospitals, primarily in Germany, but also in Spain, as you know. And in the meantime, we now have a couple of hospitals in Colombia and Peru as well. Appropriate to this situation, we have increased our capacities with regard to our intensive care units and other areas as well in Germany, because fortunately in Germany we were not hit quite as badly as other countries. We had capacities in order to be able to accept patients from other countries. What really moved me is the fact that a large number of my colleagues from Helios Germany very spontaneously declared their willingness to travel to Spain in order to help their Spanish colleagues in a period of time that was not completely lacking in danger, and we also provided a number of pieces of equipment as well. Since this pandemic broke out, we have had more than 42,000 COVID patients in our hospitals, but at this point, I would also like to provide you with a bit of cheerful news, as I believe. Since the beginning of January, the number of patients in our German Helios clinics has more than been cut in half. We seem to be on the right track, apparently. But perhaps let's take a closer look at the dialysis situation, particularly for those patients who are already very vulnerable and weak due to all of the comorbidities. The pandemic was a tremendous challenge. I am sure that Rees Powell and Helen Giese will be saying a little bit more about this to you later on. But perhaps at this point in time, I would like to say that these are patients who have to receive regular treatment. If they do not receive this regular treatment, they will die. And that is why it is absolutely essential to provide operations and maintain our operations for these particular patients. We've worked very closely together with other dialysis services providers to create separate clinics and hospitals which focused only on infected patients, and thus we were able to ensure that other patients were protected and that hospitals were relieved of this burden. Nevertheless, this did not necessarily prevent human tragedies from occurring, namely dialysis patients, as I've already said from the beginning, who were already weakened anyway. Unfortunately, they experienced excess mortality, and this was completely apart from our previous expectations, and we are going to do everything at our disposal to continue to provide good care to our patients. Allow me also to focus a little bit on our production sites, because in part there was excessive demand for their products, and so they had to work very hard. There were many life-sustaining products that were required for COVID patients in particular, and there were special requests for infusion pumps and also breathing devices, and we reacted very quickly. In harmony with the responsibility that we have, we increased our production levels. We ensured uninterrupted production processes, and perhaps this is something that should not be neglected as well. We did not even think one moment about trying to derive an economic benefit from this crisis, despite an extreme demand for our products. We committed ourselves to maintaining the prices, and we believe that this is a question of both decency and our moral intentions. I keep noticing again and again what COVID has meant when I go to my company, and what we see is there's more of a feeling of of belonging together. It is perfectly clear against this background of this global crisis, our purpose, what we stand for at Fresenius, has been emphasized much more strongly, and each and every one of our employees has shown and seen how important their daily tasks are, be it at the hospital beds, in a dialysis chair, or in a production facility, or when they're sitting at their desks. And this has meant that we have grown even more strongly together. And apart from the example that I've just given you from our Helios physicians and nurses who went to Spain, we provided other cross-border support. I'm very proud of this. This is something we are going to have to continue to do, and we are going to do so. Corona continues to be a significant burden, a challenge, both from a medical standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. The one or the other of you will spontaneously think, well, a healthcare industry such as Fresenius, well, they actually would have to benefit from a pandemic like this. But that has not been the case. Although we have had a healthy demand for our products and services, and this is why we were able to generate an increase in our revenues, but overall it is becoming more and more difficult to earn this growth. There are all sorts of inhibitions, additional hygiene factors, additional effort and time that we have to spend in order to maintain our operations. There are a number of restrictions. I've shown you a few of these restrictions on this slide. In many, many places, due to the government requirements, we've had to waive elective procedures to maintain capacities for the treatment of corona patients, who, in particular in Germany, but not to the degree that we originally feared, have been able to be treated in our hospitals. That is good for these patients, but economically, it tends to be a burden for us as a company because, and now I'm looking at the bottom left-hand corner of this slide, there are all sorts of follow-up effects. There's a decreased demand for the drugs that we produce and that are particularly used as part of the elective procedures that we provide. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see the excess mortality among dialysis patients, as I've already referred to. And the bottom right, at Vamed, we had a number of cuts in our project business, in particular due to the severe travel restrictions. Many major construction sites had to stand still, and that has also had a number of economic disadvantages for us. But 2020 if I have spoken almost solely about Corona to date, there were a couple of other aspects to the year 2020, and we achieved an awful lot and I would like to point out a number of milestones to you. For example, we have succeeded in completing the next stage acquisition. It has now been fully integrated. Also in Europe as well, and particularly during this time of a pandemic, it is becoming more and more important that home dialysis is seeing strong demand and is absolutely a field for growth. For quite some time now, I keep saying this again and again and in public, many of the services that we provide in a hospital today will be provided on an outpatient basis in day clinics, and many of the patient services that we're providing to patients in our day clinics will in the future be provided at home. And so with the acquisition of Next Stage, we believe that we have reacted to this growth trend at the right point in time, and we also want to roll out this offering in a much bigger way around the world. Secondly, you've probably seen that just before Christmas, we entered an agreement to take over the Eugene Group, and Fresenius Helios is thus becoming a leading offerer of fertility services and reproduction medicine. This means a total of 31 hospitals, so a number of 34 new sites in 9 countries. We're assuming revenues of approximately 61 million euros with 1,300 employees. And Eugene fits extremely nicely into the activities that we already have at Helios and Quirónsalud in Spain in the area of reproductive medicine and fertility services. We're assuming that due to the changed lifestyle circumstances, that this issue will continue to become even more important in the future. It's a huge growth market, and it is also very fragmented at this point in time. So we strongly assume that with our reputation for good quality and our demand for good quality, that we will be able to make a significant difference in this field. And I believe that this is really a future-oriented acquisition. We're starting from a very small base, but we are expecting considerable growth. And already in this year, we are expecting a positive contribution to the group net income. And other milestones were the rounding off of our hospital portfolio in Germany due to the acquisition of additional hospitals from the Malteser group. But you're also seeing a number of individual hospitals in Colombia. After Cali and Medellin, we're also represented in Bogota. And we also have acquired or have been able to put together a leading hospital chain there within a very short time. And finally, we are continuing to be active in the field of biosimilars. We are really very, very pleased that we had the opportunity to acquire this very small but very fine portfolio of biosimilars. It has been systematically expanded with Idacio, which is a biosimilar to adalimumab. Humira, we are well represented in Europe, and we're also striving to achieve the approval in 2023. And hopefully in this year, we're also expecting approval for Stimofend. That is a biosimilar for pegfilgrastim. And in the coming years, we will continue to bring other biosimilars to market, which will continue to provide wings to our growth in the future. Growth. Another milestone. In 2020, we exceeded the level of 300,000 employees worldwide. This is a renewed, strong increase, but not least due to the acquisitions. There is organic growth, but I wish to point out that this organic growth is definitely underproportionate to the growth in revenues, and that is why in the past we have always paid attention to efficiency and will continue to do so in the future, and I will come back to that in a moment. But these more than 300,000 employees worldwide, and this is not just an empty phrase, these employees are the basis for our success. And I am very grateful to all of our employees, and I have the greatest respect for them. Their performance and achievements in 2020 were extremely honorable in everything but a very simple environment, and that is why, from the heart, I wish to express sincere thanks to all of our employees. They provided outstanding services, and I'm going to continue to rely on them and you in the future. Turning now to the financial figures, and what you can see on this next slide is what I believe is a sign of stability year over year. And despite Corona, and compared to 2019, we have not really seen any significant deviations with regard to sales, EBIT, or net income. With sales, as I said, we were able to grow due to a very good demand for our products and services. EBIT was able to be kept stable, and at constant currency, the net income was a little bit lower, but in spite of all of the challenges, this is nevertheless a respectable result. Without the COVID effects, we would have seen a very healthy growth in 2019, and we would have also been able to gain in our profit. Well, and you could say, well, that's nice to hear what would have been, but I believe it is important to take a look at the underlying trends with regard to the status of our business model. If everyone were to assume that this pandemic will hopefully only impact us temporarily, then our underlying business model is absolutely okay. And you can see these on this chart on page 16 with a organic sales growth across the years and across all of our business segments, and ultimately on the group level, we have a very healthy organic sales growth. And we would have been able to do this last year as well in 2020. And against this background, we do not see any reason why we do not wish to continue our success story with regard to an increase in the dividend. What we are going to be proposing to the Supervisory Board is an increase in our dividend of approximately 5%, which is 4 cents from 84 euro cents to 88 euro cents. And if the Supervisory Board agrees, then this would be the 28th consecutive dividend increase proposed. With regard to 2021, we would have been able to expect very healthy growth without COVID, and this is now being reflected with regard to our sales growth, namely the impact of COVID. We're now expecting low to mid-single-digit percentage rates, and with the net income growth, I've already said, at constant currency, in particular due to COVID, in particular due to the excess mortality of dialysis patients at Fresenius Medical Care, we can only once again provide an outlook comprising stability, even if it seems to be on a good level, at least in broadly stable. That is the wording that we have agreed on here. You know that usually at this point we would provide you with a numerical range and bandwidth, but in view of the lasting uncertainty, we don't want to do so at this point in time. but we will check this one quarter after the other as to whether or not we can replace this qualitative projection with a numerical bandwidth at some point in time. What I would like to ask you to do when taking a look at this growth is that our own assessment of the corona effect this year will continue to be just as big as last year, and in addition to that, we will be receiving government support to a much lower degree this year than in 2020. So even without the net impact of the pandemic, we would have had a much stronger growth results. So what does that mean for our midterm targets that we always announced 2 years ago? Of course, when we announced them, we knew nothing about this pandemic, of course, and you all know that the results for 2020 was below our original expectations, and you also know that for 2021, without a pandemic, we wanted to have higher targets, and that we will not be able to achieve our original targets. Nevertheless, we are confident that we will be able to achieve our original targets, even if not on the same level, presumably, as we had originally planned. Of course, in order to achieve these goals, we will have to ensure results stability in 2020 and 21 and 20, and then we will have to accelerate the speed in 2022 and 2023, and that is why we have undertaken a three-stage program, which will allow us to achieve our midterm targets and to support them. And we want to continue to use this year to optimize our situation. We want to initiate cost efficiency programs. We want to take a very critical look at our portfolio in order to see whether certain adjustments appear to be meaningful. Yes, this year too, we want to continue to roll out other biosimilars, in particular to generate future growth drivers. And then in 2022, on the basis of the introduced cost efficiency programs, we want to see more visible cost savings. We would then continue our strategic evaluation of our portfolio, and on the basis of a reinforced balance sheet, we would then successfully move on in 2023 to engage in acquisitions creating value in order to improve our net income. We want to use our capital in a more selected way, and particularly concentrate on those growth areas that I've just spoken of: home dialysis, I've already mentioned, biosimilars, and reproductive medicine. This on the basis of the very healthy underlying business that we already have at Fresenius. And you will probably have already seen this in our press release, both from the 1st of February and this morning. Yes, we are planning additional cost-cutting and efficiency-improving measures at this point in time. This is a target. As we continue to talk to you, we will then also begin talking to representatives of our workforce to develop these plans. But across all of our business segments, we have to really engage in cost-cutting measures. We want to achieve savings of at least 100 million euros per year, as of the year 2023, 100 million euros per year on the level of the group net income. That means after taxes and after minorities. And later on, you'll hear from Reese Powell and Helen Giese. You'll see much bigger figures. But keep in mind, then they're talking about the levels on their operating income. But nevertheless, I can assure you that all of this fits very well together. Overall, we're going to ask ourselves, does everything really make sense, everything that we're doing right now? We can rely on our business models, but probably there might be some ways to ensure that our products and services can be distributed to our patients and customers more efficiently. And one of my favorite subjects, I believe that we can also achieve additional contributions to our margin. For today, it is a little bit too early to announce everything. This is meant to be a target. And with the we're hoping that by the time we announce and publish our results for the first quarter, we hope that we'll be able to provide you with further information. With regard to the organizational structure of the group, this is something that we're also going to review, not right now, but I believe we do have to think about whether or not we are really receiving the appreciation from the capital market that we believe we receive, and that is why, without engaging in any dogma, we should also take a look at our corporate structure. We're not going to do this with the intention of feeling it necessary to make any changes or doing anything quickly. But if the plans that we have set for ourselves, and where there are good reasons to believe in the realization of these plans, and if they're unable to implement certain aspects, then we also have to seek alternative routes in order to allow our owners to achieve an increase in value for the money that they've invested. As I've already said, in the meantime, the new areas of growth is something I've already mentioned, and I want to add another focus list. We're not only trying to reduce our costs, but we're also trying to ensure a continuous increase in sales, because that is the best way to increase our profitability and the value of our company. And of course, one of the highlights is biosimilars, as I've said. And in our hospitals, the digital offerings that we have, I already mentioned in the meantime, a lot of what we're doing in hospitals right now will slowly be moved to the patient's home. Fertility treatments and home dialysis are all areas of growth that we will be focusing on more intensively in the future. Biosimilars, as I've already briefly mentioned, I moved to the wrong slide. This is the right slide. On the right-hand side, you can see the expected sales projections starting off from a very low basis. In view of the market situation, I believe this is realistic and also gives us the hope and also the basis for the assumption that that we will be able to significantly increase our growth in 2022 and 2023. You see the different molecules on the left-hand side of this chart that we're working on right now, and the expected rollouts or launch periods. And you can see that we are set up globally here, and that we are working with a number of different indications here. In particular, as of 2024, we're expecting high triple-digit million revenues. And again in 2023, a break even with our EBITDA, and this will definitely lead to an increase in our revenues and EBIT in the future in this field. This strategic roadmap for the medium term is something I want to emphasize once again, and what I would really like to highlight here is we have a very strong foundation. We are continuing to grow because our products and services are meeting a very pleasing demand. And for this reason, starting from this basis, We are now going to engage in a transformation and help to design this transformation. That is what we have set for ourselves as a goal. And I believe that with the resilience and with the critical mass that we already have, that if we engage in this transformation seriously, we will come out of this pandemic even more strongly than we were before the pandemic. Allow me to summarize briefly in conclusion what the year was. 2020 was a very challenging year from a medical standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. Fresenius has played a very significant role, and once again I'd like to thank all of our employees. We have shown that we are part of the solution. Also, outside of Corona, we have achieved certain milestones. The pandemic has had an impact on our business, but nevertheless, we have really mastered 2020, and we also achieved our economic targets as well. And again, one symbol of this is a 28th consecutive dividend increase that we are proposing. We should not simply rest on our laurels here. We will have to continue to work to remain lean, fit, and agile. We have to understand this transformation as an opportunity, starting from the strong basis that we already have, to continue to gain in strength and to be able to take the opportunities as they come up. And that is why we want to increase our efficiency. And this will then also lead to us achieving our medium-term targets. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.